Billy Jones, your assembly representative. I've heard from many of you through my office and through email. And obviously, one of the goals here is to get you good service, to get broadband service. And as Bill had mentioned, he's been pushing very hard to get that. And you know, it is good to see Jeff here. It really is, because he works out of New York and Albany a little bit, and New York. So for him to come up here, it says a lot for the efforts of the town here and myself to get broadband service to you people. It's a very big state. Let's face it. I mean, if you look at the maps, it's very big. One of the goals is, and one of my goals has always been, to get good, proper broadband coverage to my district. So today is a good step in that, and I look forward to hearing the news from the broadband office, and to have a partner like SLIC involved in this. Anybody that has the coverage that they put up is very happy with it, and so we're looking forward to getting that last step here in the town of Dannemora. So I know you've been patient. I know your patience is fraying a little bit, but hopefully we'll have some good news and more good news to come. So I appreciate you all being here, and I appreciate being here as well. And I'd like to thank this group and the New York Broadband Office for what they're doing, because if it wasn't for a lot of people bothering them, I'd like to say that we've kind of kept you know, the squeaky wheel gets the attention, and so they have paid attention to us, and that's what we ask for here, is for people to pay attention, people that can get us these services to pay attention to us. So they are here today. So I think it is a real big deal that they are here, and I believe we'll introduce Jeff here from the broadband office, and he's going to do a presentation.
Yeah, just a quick thing.
Okay,
yeah.
So I think we should give him a round.
That's really nice. Thank you, Billy Jones, a great leader, and great assemblyman who has really been a leader in broadband, and you know, even across the state, not just for here, but across the state. We read his op-eds carefully, and you know, when he calls for action, you know, we have to step up to the plate. We also want to thank Bill Chase. I think Bill Chase is maybe the only town supervisor who has my personal text cell phone, and it goes off a lot. Phone calls, I would say once a week.
Mine too.
Okay. Sometimes it was 5 times a week in the beginning because of, you know, certain holes, certain perceived gaps around the lake. And so, like he was saying, you know, Bill and I, we started when I joined 3 years ago, so I've been running the New York Broadband program for 3 years since it started. And before that, there was a, you know, what I call the legacy program, but there was Lion Mountain, and that's also benefited the community, but it was delayed. And Bill was really not happy about that. And I said, Bill, you know, I just met him, and I said, Bill, why are you so unhappy? And he goes, well, you know, there's an old expression where I come from. He said, don't poke the bear. And, you know, so I said, oh, don't poke the bear. So I learned, don't poke the bear. But I learned something else, that actually bears really like honey. But not only that, bears really like maple syrup. So I learned with Bill that it's much better to provide syrup. Maple syrup, I hope to bring pancakes to you after this meeting. And thank you for your partnership, Bill. So with that, I'd like to give a brief presentation just to set the stage for, we do have, I hate to use the word announcement, it's not any officially sanctioned announcement. This is just a meeting that I'm having with Bill, and Bill wanted to invite Billy and the residents. So this is just a meeting, but we do have a little bit of new news. So Kevin, before I give the new information, what I'd like to do is just set the stage of the new New York Broadband program. If you could just go to the next slide. Over the last several years, we've all come to recognize, and those of us who've been around before the internet realized, you know, it started off as something nice, something neat, you know, AOL and you know, surfing the web and maybe sending some emails and whatnot, but it's totally changed. Broadband is no longer a luxury, it's a necessity. You can't be part of everyday community, everyday society without access to broadband, not only for entertainment, but for economic development, for inclusion, for participating in all, you know, aspects, whether it's distance learning, distance health, whether it's having kids do their homework, any any kind of thing. So this is an absolutely critical function, just like electricity, just like water. Broadband's basically becoming a utility. Everybody needs to have it, and that's the view that we have, that we share, and that's why Governor Cuomo in 2015 launched the by far largest in the nation New York broadband program. It's a $500 million program. I joined in 2015 to help structure and manage the program. It's by far the largest state broadband investment program in the country. The way we work is we don't believe that the government should, be the answer and start a broadband company, but we believe that private companies are the right solution. So what we do is we partner with private companies and we give them incentives, to build out into unserved communities. And that is, right over here, right around the lake is a perfect example of that, an area there. People who need broadband, it's unserved. And in very remote areas, the economics breaks down. If you just look at the way the business works, it's basically a network business where it costs a certain amount to deploy, let's say, a mile of cable or a mile of fiber. And then it depends how many customers are on that mile. If you're in like New York City where I live, you have 1,000 customers, they're all paying $100 a month. You can make a lot of financial return on what it costs to deploy a mile. Let's say a mile costs $50,000, $25,000 per mile. If you have 100 people or 1,000 people, you can make a huge return on that $25,000 or $50,000. But if you're in a very rural area, let's say you only have 2 people on that mile, or 1 person on that mile, you're in an extremely rural area, you're putting $50,000 in the ground, you're probably never going to see that again as a company. I mean, you have to wait years and years to see that. That's why the cable companies, they build in the donut hole, right, and they don't go out. We all know that story. That's why the rural areas, the economics of it breaks down. So that's why we structure these programs to provide incentives for companies to go into the area and provide a gap. Not because we believe the economy doesn't work, but believe in certain areas it breaks down and it's a good government resource to come in and incentivize companies to come in. So that's what this is. It's an incentive program. We go public-private partnerships where we partner with the company. They invest capital expenditures. We reimburse them up to, depends on a bid, so we do a reverse auction. It's all lowest cost to bid. And whoever wins, we did a statewide auction, whoever's the lowest cost to serve ends up winning the area. So all the awards that we made back in March were based on the lowest cost to bid, lowest cost per home. It's $200 for this home, $500 for this home, and that's how it works. Once they deploy the capital expenditures, we reimburse it after the fact. That's the structure of the program that we have in place. And we've done 3 rounds of funding so far, and March is when we announced round 3. Why don't we go to the next slide, if you don't mind. Thanks, Kevin, for helping me. We were very successful. With that $500 million on a statewide basis, we leveraged $728 million of public and private broadband. So that's close to $500 million of the state funding, less expenses and consultants and whatnot. $490 million went directly into broadband investment. We leveraged an additional $237 of private match. So we'll put in 80. Brad, Kevin, the company will put in 20. Could be 50-50 in certain cases. But we got an additional 237. That's how, through our program, we've leveraged, $750 million of new broadband statewide. The program has led to 126 projects statewide, which are funding these partnerships all over the state. Every single upstate region, all 8 REDCs, all 8 what we call the regions upstate, are receiving broadband build through 34 company partnerships that we put in place. And through this, we are deploying over 21,000 miles of fiber optic cable, which is like mind-boggling. It's like to California back, whatever, 8, 9, 10 times. It's a huge amount of fiber. It's dwarfing, any other initiative that's out there. 256,000 homes that didn't have broadband before will now have broadband. We're talking about fiber optics, which is, the most state-of-the-art. We'll come back to that in a minute. So let's come down a little closer to home. We're kind of starting here. We're getting closer to home. So let's go to the next slide. So let's talk about the North Country. Billy knows all about this. The North Country was probably the most in-need area for broadband. Southern Tier needed it too. But this was probably, this program really was about you guys. And it's no surprise that you were the most successful in terms of the region generating funding. So the North Country got $155 million of broadband funding. Over 100 million, so that's obviously more than 20%. for 8 regions, so you got 1/5 for 1/8 of the, even though you're 1/8 of the region, so you can see how you outperformed, and 50 million of private matching dollars. So that's how 150 in the region, 31 projects with 12 companies, and almost 3,000 miles of fiber, right here in the North Country to cover 50,000 homes, including yours, that didn't have broadband before. So now we're going to come even closer to home and talk about what we're doing in Dannemora, and then I'm going to turn it over to SLIC to provide you additional details. We have been able to add one additional project to what was announced in March, and that's really what I wanted to come up here. I've been texting Bill and talking to Billy since March, for 4 months, every single day, and he's explained to me that, the north of the lake and the south of the lake were covered by SLIC, but the east, the side of the lake, especially on the east side, there was nothing. And so what we did is we went back and we talked to SLIC and we asked them, given the network is going to be there, given the fiber is going to be in the north and given the fiber is going to be on the south, can't we shave some money out of the project, do it a little bit cheaper, and the BPO is going to look at all the projects that we have in-house, see if we have the last amount of funding, and if we can line those two up. So we were able to, through this process, make one, like squeezing the lemon, found one more drop basically through that 490 million to make one additional award, and it actually, in the auction statewide, this is literally the next in line. So we looked at the whole state, what is the next project in line to receive funding, and it was actually Shazy Lake. So Shazy Lake, and this is going to be, they'll show you the maps of exactly what they're building. The west side, part of that is quote off the table, as it were, due to a prior commitment that's going to be a build out there. But the north, the south, and all along the east, and we'll show that, is now going to be covered by SLIC. And so these are the stats. We have SLIC coming in to do around over 700 and about 750 homes for $1.4 million. They're going to be matching close to $500,000 to build this out for the residents of Shazy Lake, and it's going to be a total commitment of 1.9 million. There's also some satellite that's for the outer areas that's not affecting the folks on the lake, and so I think this was not easy. I know that everybody wants fiber and everyone thinks this is very easy, but this is actually very hard work to get providers to come to these areas that are rural and to find funding and to make this line up. So we are really excited. I know personally I'm really excited, having just driven by the lake, that the whole lake is going to basically have coverage at this point in time, and the whole town is going to, there's going to be 100% coverage. There's 100 residents here, but there's like 1,500 residents that are going to have fiber optics, which is not only capable of 25, not only capable of 100, but this is basically capable of a gigabit, and we're going to talk about that. This is a state-of-the-art network that's better than, frankly, what I have in New York City. This is a future-proof network, fiber optics directly to your house, so that there's really nothing that you can't do once you're online. So I'm really pleased to be able to announce and tell you guys about that update today. I'd like to turn it over to Brad Patelli, who's a major shareholder and CEO of SLIC, who works with Kevin Lynch, and who's a CEO and sort of, we all know Kevin, who makes everything happen in the region. And they're going to talk to you about exactly the maps and where they're building out, and I hope you guys will be pleased with the results, and we'll be happy to answer any questions after they go through that. So can I turn over to Brad?
You can, yeah. And I think, Jeff, thank you very much. Bill, thank you for inviting us and having us and giving us an opportunity to talk to the members of the community about the program and about our plan. I know everybody's anxious to talk about the maps, and I'll ask Kevin to do that shortly. I just want to introduce myself real briefly. I'm a bit of the new kid on the block at SLIC. I've only been the CEO for about 6 months. So in that regard, I'm new, but I'm someone who grew up in rural Illinois and farm country, and I grew up about 5 miles from a thriving metropolis of 275 people. And I'm very accustomed to rural living. I've spent a lot of my life there, and the challenges and the difficulties that go with that, I'm very attuned to. I was reminded of that just a couple of weeks ago as I was visiting my folks and struggling with my 2 megabit by 500K service that they still have as their home there today. So about a year ago, a friend of mine came to me who knew that I had a home in the North Country here. I've been coming in the North Country for about 25 years. My wife and I bought our first home here in Lake Placid about 15 years ago. And he came to me and said SLIC was raising money to do this build out, to bring broadband to these rural communities. And this was something that really resonated with me. Number one, being a rural person and understanding the importance of this, but two, spending a lot of time in the North Country and being from the North Country, this was something that really resonated with me personally. And so a group of individuals with myself, like-minded individuals, put a fair bit of capital into SLIC to properly capitalize it, which got us to where we are today. But Jeff, I have to say, I mean, you go through those numbers very quickly, and it's $500 million. It's $500 million. And, you know, we've raised now, just in the last year or so, about $15 million at SLIC, which is a lot of money to just about anybody. But we couldn't do anything if it wasn't for the matching funds and the program that the broadband office has established. So, Jeff, thanks for that, and really the governor for having a vision on that specific issue. So,
And actually, you know, I got a call from another town supervisor whose town is also basically being covered now in your region. And he said, you know, we've been fighting for years to get anything, to get $500,000, to get $1 million, to do anything. And now suddenly, you know, there's a provider coming in, spending $1 million, connecting us with fiber. And, you know, of course, everyone wants more. There's always more work to be done and so forth and so on. But this is a game changer for the North Country. You know, if you're in any of these regions, it's going to be a game changer. And those are really big numbers. I mean,
they're big numbers, and folks have to understand, the math, without this program, the math just doesn't work. So, thank you, and Kevin, we should just go through the maps. That's what people care about. So, Kevin's our Chief Operating Officer, and I just want to introduce Jeremy Patry, who is our network and engineering manager at the firm, and a very important person for us. So.
Well, I'm trying to make it big for you here. I'm off and off.
is it frozen?
But I've only got one screen. I don't know where you lost one. Maybe see it.
There you go.
Oh, yeah.
You want to hit slideshow at the top?
Yeah, I
Try to get
can't get the mouse to go here. Yeah, I'm trying to. Well. Oh, we can do it small-ish. Okay. Sorry I can't make this bigger right now, so I'll work on that. But what I want to show you is, this is the town of Dannemora, so the black line, you all live here, you're very familiar with it. And when I want to talk about the different projects, so just to start out, you can just arrow down too, Jeff. Just hit the down arrow twice. There we go. Okay, so as is mentioned, last summer we built out Lion Mountain, and last fall we started installing customers. So this is kind of on the western side of the town of Dannemora. We passed 319 homes and businesses. It's all fiber optic service, not just to the house, but actually right into the house. It's fiber optic right to the piece of equipment that you then connect to or get your wireless. And so it's been great Lion Mountain. A lot of customers joining in the fall and in the spring. We've been very busy installing them. But that project, that was connecting your project, that project ended at the bottom of the mountain, you know, coming up 374. There's that big stretch of, there's no pole lines, there's nothing. So we got that project, and then through phase 3, if you go to the next slide, we were able to get 2 projects funded. And here's the areas where we're funding. So the green and the blue, slightly different categories of the way the auction ran, but the point is we're covering all that area that kind of underlies that. So you'll see the shore from 374 kind of going up, and then all the way down into the village of Dannemora, and all the way out to the eastern side of the, is this actually? Oh, okay, perfect. Laser pointer. Okay, so you can see the shoreline here up, and then We'll be coming down 374 all the way over Dannemora Mountain down into the village of Dannemora and covering there as well. And what Jeff was talking about is when we initially awarded these green areas, we have to connect these with fiber. And in terms of if you're running the fiber there's got to be a way to add some more houses on there. So sharpen your pencils and see what we can do. And so we were able to do that and get these additional. So with these two projects, we're going to pass 737 homes and businesses in the town and village. Again, it's going to be all fiber optic service, speeds available up to 1 gigabit per second, which is, Google Fiber. You can't get that anywhere. In New York City, maybe you can get it. And so
I can't get that.
it's the best there is right now. It's great. And because it's a state-funded grant, this is really important. You're going to be able to get 25 meg service, which is really quality service for under $60 a month. So that was one of the provisions that was really well thought out, is making sure that not only do we build it, but it's accessible, that everybody can get there. There'll be other packages for faster speeds, and we do see people take those faster speeds, especially for businesses and things. But at the $60 level, this is a great package. You can stream your Netflix, you can do whatever you need to do online with the service. If we go down one more, Jeff, I kind of blew up a couple of the areas in a little bit more detail, so you can kind of see it at the address level. So here on the lake, it will start here. We'll build fiber up this way and down. So all these houses here will be covered, and all the houses in this area will be covered with fiber optic service. The one thing I will mention, I know I've been on some of these roads, we're running wherever there's public utilities. If the electricity stops and you have a half mile off grid, we won't necessarily connect you. We'll work with you, but that will be a partnership between the company and the individual. We do have some people that actually live off grid and still get our fiber. But the grant covers for areas that aren't commercial power. And so that's that area. If we go down one more. And then we'll come down into the village, so the entire village of Dannemora will be covered as well, and then headed out east of the village, out towards the next town will be covered. So it's going to cover the vast majority of the town of Dannemora will have fiber optic service. It's a great story.
What's the progression for it? Where will you be started?
Yeah, so if you go back up to Jeff, we'll just leave it at that one. Kind of one more up. There we go. So one of the processes when we go to build fiber, as I mentioned, we build on the public utility pole, so we have to apply for what's called make ready. And it's just coordinating with NYSEG in this area to make sure there's space that we can safely attach to the pole. When we do that, we'll go out and we'll ride the pole lines, and there's really two different options for us to come into Shazy Lake. One is to come down Plank Road from Ellenburg, come down from the north. The other option, we may be able to work with NYSEG. There's a major transmission line that comes from Lion Mountain up over, down, and it plops out over on Shazy Lake Road. So we have to look at those two options and see which is going to be the most cost-effective, requires the least amount of work and the faster schedule. So depending which way that goes will depend where we feed the rest of this project from. And one of the goals we do as well, we have multiple areas, is we do like to get some diversity in our routes. So sometimes we'll come from two different directions. So when there's a windstorm or something, there's less likelihood that there'll be an outage, or it'll be a limited outage as opposed to a widespread outage. Timeline on this, just to give, this is being announced today. We've been doing some work on it, but this really is kind of the launch to get in there. It will take us a couple months to plan the exact route. It's a lot of driving around in cars doing this, looking up at telephone poles and figuring out what's the best way to go. And in some cases, you might have Verizon on one side of the road and NYSEG, and we'll decide which side of the road makes most sense for us to attach. So that's about a 2-month process. Then we apply to the pole owners. And we say, okay, here's the poles we'd like to attach to. And then that's where the engineering survey goes out. And they have to look at each individual pole, make sure that the added weight's not going to cause an issue, make sure there's enough height to get over the road, or if there's a field entrance or things like that. So that just takes a little bit of time. Typically, we've been seeing those take anywhere from 4 to 6 months to get that back and get the go-ahead to do what's called make ready. When we get that back, we hire a contractor who goes out, and they might have to replace a pole, they might have to move a transformer, they might have to move the house service up, the electric service up a little bit to get us room in there. That process takes anywhere to 1 to 2 months, and then we start the construction. So at this point, we're talking late spring, early summer of 2019 when we'll start construction in this area. That's just, I don't want to tell you, it could be sooner, but not likely. That's a good, realistic plan to see it. So you'll see vehicles in the
deadline, like for our program, the deadline for the phase 3 projects across the board is, because it's July of 2018. The deadline is December 2019. So I'm glad to hear they're going to get it sooner, but just so you know, the deadline is the end of next year. It has to be done by then.
And just a little bit of the construction process, the crews will come up, they put what's called strand, it's 1/4-inch steel cable between each pole, and then we lash our fiber optics to that. The fiber is actually pretty light. We'll run 96 fiber optics, which is an incredible amount of capacity. The great thing about this program is fiber optics is really a 30 to 50-year investment. It's got a very long lifetime, and you can just continually upgrade it. So it's not something where other technologies you have to go back every couple of years and replace a lot of components. Really, just the two ends get replaced. Everything else has a very long lifetime. As we start to build that out, you'll see the trucks. We'll contact people, say, hey, we'll be in your neighborhood in a couple of months, and you can sign up, and we do the installation process. The way that works is every so often we have it's called a splitter. It just takes that light signal from the laser and it splits it off. And we do that every so often. We can split it 32 times off of each one to serve houses. We run fiber optics from the pole. We follow your existing utilities. So if your electric service comes overhead, we'll follow that. If your electric service is buried, we'll bury it in and bring it to your house. We'll locate it somewhere centrally in your house so you have good coverage. If you have a very large house, we might put some extenders on it. But our equipment covers everything to about 3,000 square feet. You get much beyond 3,000 square feet, we might have to add some extenders. But it's a great service, and I'd be glad to answer